Okay, welcome back to Renegades. This is going to be a video that shows the Earldom of Valeni. Now I will jump into that. Now the Earldom of Valeni is effectively a map that's been cut from or copied from the world map, and then I've increased the resolution. Instead of it being 1 pixel equals 9 miles, on this map every pixel equals a quarter of a mile. So that again makes it a completely an awesome map to play with. Again, using paint.net, and in this case I've got plenty of other layered effects. Now I really want people to have a play around with paint.net using these files. So these files I want to make them available so that people can reference them. Just as an out of character reference, this map is not for in-character use unless somebody actually comes across this kind of level of detail. I don't think that's likely. Most likely it's going to be restricted, but just so that people get an overview of what's going on with the campaign, this map can be used for those purposes. So what I have here is this awesome looking map. Now, as I said, it's taken from the world map. I then increased the resolution. I'm going to show an example of that, but I'm going to hide a few things first so that I can show how this all fits together. So, for example, the test barony that I've been playing around with is down here. It's a Samurai faction barony. So I'm going to click off the Samurai layer, and that's going to hopefully, oops, wrong one. Samurai, it's going to now show the background. Now, unfortunately, I did merge down previously over this area, so it's not quite as natural looking as the rest of it, but I don't mind at the moment. I'm going to show the processes of creating single provinces for lords, licensee lords, and also how to create an entire barony of 9 provinces. In this example, I'm just going to show now the allocation that would be allocated to a licensee baron, for example, would be the 9 provinces in this format. And then the next process would be to change some of the pixels so that it breaks it up and becomes a little bit more natural. And the final pass that's of the barony creation process is to change it so that each pixel is a quarter of a mile. So zooming in, you can see that it's quite detailed just in this format. But there's another process that I've got, which is to make an artistic representation of this, and those artistic representations will be for in-character maps. This map here is only for out-of-character use. It's just not good enough to use for in-character use. Since I developed this process of creating baronies and creating the pixelized form of the map, there's been a few changes, and I'm really impressed with the results. I still want to use this process for people to follow a step-by-step, everybody following the same process, so that nobody can get any unfair advantages and things like that. The main thing is that yes, there's a couple of different aspects. The Baron, for example, or Lord would create this map, and then they would have to get somebody else to create the artistic representation. I think that there's too many chances of inside knowledge if a Baron was to actually create the artistic representation, or a Lord to create the artistic representation. And so that means that yes, it gets to this point, and then at this point it gets taken to another licensee who will then complete it in the artistic representation. But anyway, we'll get to that later. I'm just going to zoom back out and just go over some of the features of this map. So there are lots of different layered effects over on the right hand side here. When I provide this kind of map to people to be looked at in the paint.net program, and of course they could be getting, I could send it to people as a JPEG, but it'd be flattened. So when you save this as a JPEG, it flattens the image and all these layers are lost. And I don't particularly want that. What I like is the fact that I can, just by clicking on a button here, I can make it so that all the Samarajay affiliated Lord provinces and barony areas are shown. I can just click on the coordinates, remove the coordinates, add the grid as needed. I can remove the border if I need to. All those things are available to people if they use the paint.net program rather than a simple JPEG. So taking the image from the world map into here, I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more detail, but I didn't want to affect the map straight away. Okay, so all this mountainous terrain that I've put in here is an overlay. It's a layer over on the right hand side. For example, if I click on that button there, it removes some of the mountainous terrain. If I click on this one, it removes more. If I click on both of them, it removes all of the extra layered effect that I put over it. Now, another thing that I've decided is that I don't want landlocked lordships or baronies. I want to make it so that each of these areas is linked to the inland sea or to the major river system. And if I zoom in on one of these, you'll see that the scale of these rivers is quite big. So effectively, the priests of trade can go up and down these rivers, and there is free traffic through through this Tang Empire one, for example, to these other ones here. So nobody can deny traffic along the river systems. It's really important that I make it so that the priests of trade have total control over that river traffic, so that individual licensees can't deny access to outside resources and have an embargo or anything like that. A lot of these rules that I'm talking about, that I've talked to many people about, I don't want to be the only one that has an influence over these rules. Every rule that is put in place, I want it to be a reflection of my desire for a 20-year campaign. That's my plan, that regardless of individuals, if individuals come and go from the campaign in the real world catches up with them and they've got other things that they need to do, that they don't want to be actively involved, that somebody else could take up the license of the region that's been developed. So looking at all the, I'm trying to create an effect of valleys through the Earldom. Now the Earl of Valeni is this white area here. The Earl of Valeni is in this area, and this is under the total control of the Earl of Valeni. Outside of that are the regions that have been opened up via the most recent Imperial Accord. Now, the peace accord basically ended the Civil War, and as a result of that, the locals they have basically decided that they will choose an empire that they will be belonging to after a period of evaluation. So any of the lords and barons who come in to these areas are going to be effectively representing their faction, and there may be that that the local people decide that they don't want to be a part of any of the surrounding empires. They want to be an independent area. But that's down the track in this campaign. The main thing is that I've tried to space these areas apart. There are local people living in these areas outside of the areas that are coloured is effectively the Badlands. Now, the Badlands are made up of a combination of undead infested area and places where it's rife with monsters, creatures, um, bears, wolves, boars, pretty much adventuring paradise. There's so much that can be done on this map, it's not funny. And the main thing is that there's so much room to grow. I don't believe that there's going to be a time where we're going to run out of space. Now, the geopolitical system that I've put together, the automated system, will probably involve some of these areas expanding beyond their borders. Now, that expansion will take a long time for them to encroach upon the expansion of others. The distance between provinces, there's a lot of badlands between them. Now, we'll get to that in a later video, but the main thing is that, yes, this video is just to show an overview of the campaign area. So from paint.net, it's possible to generate all sorts of in-character maps. And an in-character map may be as simple as this kind of map here. The piece of chords, the piece of chords will basically dictate where the factions are, and for the purposes of me at least getting to the point where I can allocate territory to individuals who want to be licensee lords or barons, I've put these areas together, an equal number of baronies, an equal number of single province lordships. We'll cover the next part that I'm going to cover will be an overview of how to get from the allocated territory that I showed before, which is creation allocation. So, oops, sorry about that. So these allocated 9 square mile allocations to a quarter mile like this. So I'll cover that in another video. Thank you.